Good morning, dear students. In this video, let us see about the cognitive enhancers. Before entering into the topic, let us try to understand what is this cognition. So this cognition process is considered one of the mental action or process of acquiring the knowledge. So now, after acquiring knowledge, so that maybe gets stored and it will be considered as a memory. So this process of acquiring knowledge always involves multiple steps. Say for example, if you are accepting some of the information, so our brain used to utilize the earlier experience before accepting it, and a lot of sense and other thoughts the brain is going to process, and once it got accepted, so later it will turn into the memory. So as a reflex, you will be start doing the actions. So there the cognition word represents. So next let us move on and let us see like what are the topic we are going to see. So now introduction part I will be covering about the cognitive and cognitive enhancer, because once the cognition get improved by using cognitive enhancers, then memory will be very much easier. So now general approach for improving cognition will be seeing, and also cognitive enhancers classification followed by the mechanism of action, and what are the scope of cognitive enhancers in health and disease. So let us see about the cognition. So now cognition and cognitive enhancer. What is cognition? So it's a mental process involving in gaining knowledge and comprehension of the knowledge. So now it includes, suppose anything if you are accepting means we will start thinking, and we will start remembering the old incident which can be prefixed with this, and later knowing and judging we are going to do. Overall this process will happen in a shorter span of term, so that what the accepted information will be there, so that later it will be get stored or sometime it may be get discarded. But our cognition always it will work, which involves thinking, knowing the thing, remembering and judging. In simple term, it's a brain process of acquiring and exploiting knowledge. This is how our brain will interpret. Suppose you have a drug which can enhance the cognition itself, like you are thinking or remembering or judging or knowing. The new information will be very much easily stored in the brain. So now we have a set of drugs called as cognition enhancers. With the help of that, we can increase the cognition capability of a person. Now let us see what are these cognitive enhancer, because this cognitive enhancer can increase the cognition. Say neuroactive substances that elevates individual cognitive abilities in a meaningful and sustained way. So these agents are called as nootropic agents, are also called as smart drugs. So this nootropic word represents Greek word term nous and terpin. So nous means mind, and terpin means bent. So these are the agents they are going to increase the memory. Now let us see, generally if we want to improve the memory, or general approaches to improve the cognition. So now here physiological parameters also will be considering. One, increased blood flow should happen, because whenever we think, the brain requires more oxygen supply and continuous supply of glucose also required for thinking process. This happens only suppose increase in the blood flow occurs. So now if our drug is having a property to increase the blood flow, so then obviously our cognition ability may also improve. So now how this increasing blood flow will happen? Our blood vessel should dilate, cerebral blood vessel should dilate. If a drug enhances this dilating property, so then our cognition also will be improved. So much of the studies have been carried out with many of the scientists. One of the best example is Einstein. So after his death, the brain was taken and it was observed. So much of the blood vessels was dilated condition. So now even many of the drug principle also talks the same. Now if a drug is having a property to enhance the blood circulation in the cerebral region, so then they have in property to enhance the cognition. This may be the one. So then not only blood circulation suits there, so along with that enhancing the neurotransmission should happen, as we know about the synapse. So where continuous release of neurotransmitter will happen. So whenever the thoughts come, the neurotransmitter should get released, so that a stronger connection can be seen between the nerves. So some drugs they enhances the neurotransmitter, and there are some drugs they increases the blood flow also. And other requirement like increased neurometabolism, stimulation of the hormones and enzyme will happen whenever increase in the metabolism occurs. As we know, like some of the prerequisites are general properties of neuron you came across are neurotransmitters. So there we have enlisted many of the ideal requirements. The nerve terminal should have many of the enzymes and precursor substances which can synthesize the neurotransmitter, because these neurotransmitters are synthesized and secreted in the synaptic region itself. So now if some of the agent which can increase the neuronal metabolism, so thereby production of neurotransmitter may be increased, and also its secretion can be enhanced, because there are some property which can enhance the neurotransmission also, just previously we have seen. So this may be the third possibility, the neuronal metabolism enhancers. If increase the metabolism, so thereby it can stimulate various hormones and enzymes, so thereby the response can be observed. Then other than one more approach, that is the increased nerve growth factors. Yeah, there are many nerve growth factors are available. They are peptides, small peptides. Brain derived neurotropic factors are there. So they, if you are increasing that, there may be a chance of improving the memory. So this may be the one. And other like improvement of cerebral functions. If the cerebral region, if get continuous supply of the blood, cerebral region, memory enhancement can be seen, because so this is the site where memory will be get stored. So these are the general approaches for improving cognition. Here we have seen about 5 approaches. Our drugs may come under one of the approaches among the 5 where it can show the nootropic response. Then coming with the neurobiology of learning and memory. So now which are the reasons or areas in the brain they involved in the memory. So first is the hippocampus region, which helps to encode the new information. Any new information, if it is entering into the brain, so the hippocampus region, so there it starts encoding the new information. But later while encoding, so they are going to compare with the existing information what we have, that's a cognition. So such that very easily already the information is known to the brain. Already physiological, if you are observing also, synapse connection will be very much easier, because already a link have been framed earlier. So now encoding will happen in the hippocampus region. So then other areas like striofrontal cortex region, where it involved in the decision making, because sometimes prejudgment we may be having, you may be accepting it. If it is accepted very easily with the general information what got stored, so then easy learning will happen. And frontal lobe, where it archives and retrieval of the memory will happen, what the information got gathered. Already if it is existing means it will be get in the archived region, early remembering will happen, or it may be sometime retrieval by continuous practice, and by learning we may be getting some of the knowledge, right? So that may be a retrieval type of memory. So these are the areas in the brain they engage in the memory. So now let us see about the process of memory formation. So now brain undergoes a physical and chemical change which is called as the synaptic plasticity. So now chemical means release of various neurotransmitters can be observed. So because of this, a strong link can be observed between the synapse. So now based on this process of memory formation, so we can classify it into 3 types, like short-term memory. So this short-term memory may last for seconds or minutes. So then we have intermediate long-term memory which lasts for days to weeks, and long-term memory once stored can be recalled up to years or even for a lifetime. So now where the difference we are coming across, in the duration, because we are classified into three types like short term, intermediate, long term memory and long term memory. So here the difference we will come across with the synaptic connections what it have been framed. Suppose if it is a weak signal and only a weak connection have been framed, so then it may not be get stored, so only for shorter time the person can remember. Suppose a stronger connection have been formed between the synapses, so that for longer time it will be in the synaptic region in the nerves, so later in the deeper cerebral cortex region, so that such information will be stored. Whereas the short term memory information, so only it will be revolving in the nerve terminal itself, only for a shorter time we will be remembering, but it won't be get stored in the cerebral cortex. This is what, like continuously, suppose if you are practicing, what will happen, the nerve will be get trained and a stronger connection will be get formed, and the impulses will be traveling in the nerve terminals and the nerves for longer time. Such information will be get stored. Best way to improve the memory, like continuous practice, so that we can shift from short term memory towards the long term memory, where we can improve the synaptic chemical transmission, where the information can be get stored. Coming with the cellular mechanism of neurodegeneration, because up to now we have seen like how to improve the memory. So now here, in what are the conditions the drug may be required, because now in the general healthier volunteers, the people, the drug may not be required. Whenever there is some problems with the brain or disease with the brain, in such condition the drugs are prescribed. Say for example, in neurodegeneration condition, neurodegeneration, the word itself, it says like nerve degeneration will happen. So it may also called as cell death of a particular nerve. Once a nerve got died, we know like regeneration won't happen. So now this neurodegeneration collect many diseases we can put over there. Say for example, it may be Alzheimer's disease, very commonly can be observed in aged people. In such condition, the drugs may be required. So now this neurodegeneration may happen because of three accepted mechanisms or pathophysiology behind neurodegeneration. One is maybe misfolded or aggregated protein. Suppose misfolding happens in the brain areas, so thereby slowly, because of lack of blood circulation and other things, like neurodegeneration may happen. One more accepted mechanism, that is the aggregated proteins. Say for example, amyloid beta and tau proteins may get precipitated in the neurons. Once a nerve cell get precipitated with such proteins, once again there won't be proper fulfillment of the oxygen supply and the ATPs. So now what will happen? Such neurons will die, such that it may lead to Alzheimer's. There is a permanent changes what you can observe, neurodegeneration. So now, what is the main reason for this? Means it is age-related decline in ability to clear such misfolded proteins. Now that misfolded protein should not precipitate on the nerve. So because of the advancement in the age, there is a chance of precipitation of the protein. So thereby degeneration will happen. And the next possibility of neurodegeneration is the excitotoxicity, where neuronal injury resulting from excessive glutamate activity in the brain. As we know about the glutamate, it is one of the excitatory neurotransmitter. Whenever more production and overactivity of glutamate action will happen in the brain, so it will lead to neuronal injury, because more and more calcium may be get dumped. So this causes destructive effect mediated by NMDA type of receptor, N-methyl D aspartate receptor. You heard earlier in many discussions, where NMDA comes under the excitatory receptor neurotransmitter, which act on this receptor is glutamate. So now mechanism of action, if you see, like it may cause acute strokes and head traumas may be the reason. So thereby we can come across with the neurodegeneration. The third, it may be oxidative stress. Aging may be the reason one, like impairment capacity of the neuron to handle oxidative stress, or in oxidative stress, reactive oxygen species may be get produced, where this will act as a bullet to the cell, so they causes DNA damage and also causes peroxidation of membrane lipids and neuronal death. Overall, this will lead to neurodegeneration. So in such condition, neurodegenerative diseases, so our smart drugs may be essential, not in healthy volunteers. So in the next slide, I will be talking about